Let's learn about types of angles and special angle pairs. What you kids up to? Making snow angels. On our agenda, we're going to discuss different types of pairs of lines, learn lots of new vocabulary. We'll learn about special angle pairs created by intersecting lines and how these angle pairs are related. Let's get ready. There is a lot of new vocabulary here, so please make sure you take notes along the way. You're going to need your notebook and pencil. What do you notice here about these pairs of lines? Well, some intersect and some don't. So we have intersecting lines. They intersect at the one point. These are parallel lines, and remember, in order to know that they're parallel lines, there has to be a marking, or we have to be told. If this was line A and B, then we would have A is parallel to B. That number 11 is the symbol for parallel. If this is line C and D, and these are two intersecting lines, and they intersect and they have that right angle box, we can then say that line C is perpendicular to line D. We have a new line, and it's called the transversal. I like to think of it as a bridge. So if we have line A, B, and C, C would be the bridge. It's connecting both of those. And I want you to think about this being a little river, and then out here would be the riverbank and the riverbank. So you want to orientate yourself every time. There's the river, and we're going to say any angles in here are interior, and any angles out here are exterior. I gave you this one, so if we call this line A, B, and C, and we make C the transversal, that's the line connecting both, then my river would go this way, and this would be the interior, and this would be the exterior. So you're always going to want to look for this transversal line, and then we're going to talk about the points that are created there and the angles. Let's go over some old angle pairs and talk about which ones are congruent. So if I look around this point, we'll go with line A, B, and C again. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 3 because of vertical. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 4 because of vertical. And we could do the same around that point. Which angle pairs are supplementary? There's a lot in this picture. 1 and 2 are supplementary. 1 and 3, 3 and 4, 2 and 4, and then you can do the same around here. But now we're going to look at some new angle pairs that relate around this point to this point. So first we want to look at ones that are in the same spot. So if I have 4 angles around there, and I want to look at the one in the upper right hand corner, that would be number 2, and down here it would be number 6. And when they're in the same spot, we're going to call them corresponding. They correspond to each other, they're in the same spot. 1 would correspond with 5 because it's in the upper left, 3 would correspond with 7, and 4 would correspond with 8. So you have 4 pairs of corresponding angles. They are angles that are in the same spot. Let's look at another new pair of angles, again relating from this vertex to the next vertex. If we call this A, B, and line C, C is our transversal. So we want to keep our eye on C, and here is our river. So we're going to look at 2 angles that are on the inside. So in the river, let's look at angle 3 and angle 6. They are both interior, and they're on alternate sides of that transversal. One's on the left, one's on the right. So when we put that together, we're going to have alternate interior angles. They are inside our 2 lines, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So 3 goes with 6, and 4 goes with 5. We have another pair. Again, looking around this vertex, line A, B, and C. C is our transversal. This is still the inside, but now we're going to look at the outside, so sort of the river banks. And we want to talk about angles that are on the outside, so we're going to say exterior. And we want them to alternate around that transversal again, so to be on opposite sides. So angle 1 is on the exterior, and I'm not going to go with 7, it's also on the exterior, but I want to alternate around the transversal, so I'm looking at angle 8. So we would say that angle 1 and angle 8 are alternate exterior angles. There are 2 pairs of those, alternate exterior angles. They are outside the 2 lines. One goes with 8, 2 goes with 7. Those are pairs of alternate exterior angles. And we have one last that we're going to look at, and here's line A, B with C as our transversal. Here's my river. Both of these are going to be interior, and we already looked at alternate interior, so the other thing we want to do is look at same side interior angles. Well, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all on the interior. So if I go with 4, the one that's on the same side would be 6. So angle 4 and angle 6 are called same side interior angle. We have another pair. We have 4 and 6. We also have 3 and 5. They're in the river. They're on the same side of that transversal. So our new names are corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, same side interior angles. Those are the 4 angle pairs that we're going to be concentrating on. So now what happens when we make the lines parallel? Notice I put these little arrowheads on here to say that the lines are parallel, so we could say line A is parallel to line B, and C is our transversal. When I orientate myself, here's my river. So 3, 4, 5, and 6 are in the interior. 1, 2, 7, and 8 are on the exterior to help me name my angles. So with corresponding angles being in the same spot, we said angle 2 and angle 6 are both in the upper right-hand side. So if I said that angle 2 was 80, then because the lines are parallel, angle 6 is also going to be 80. It's as if you could take this line, put it right up here, it would go right on top, and then 6 would match up. If we had our protractor, we could measure that. So any of the corresponding angles that are in the same spot are going to be congruent, and that should make sense. If I work my way over here, this is going to be 100 because those are supplementary, and then 1 and 5 are congruent, so this is 100. And then 2 and 3 are congruent because of vertical, so those are 80, and then those are 100. So just by knowing that one angle, we worked our way all the way around. We have a new theorem then. If you can identify what the angle is, like 2 and 6, if they're corresponding angles, we're going to call them all theorems. Corresponding angle theorem. If 2 lines are parallel, that has to be true. Then the corresponding angles are congruent. Let's look at what happens with our alternate interior angles. Again, our lines are parallel. We have our transversal of C. We have our river. So we're now interior and opposite. So we're looking at 4 and 5. Well, 4 looks obtuse, 5 looks obtuse. They are going to be congruent again. So we have a new theorem, alternate interior angles theorem. If 2 lines are parallel, then alternate interior angles are going to be congruent. So we could say 4 is congruent to 5 and 3 is congruent to 6. Let's look at our alternate exterior. Here's our interior, so we are not talking about 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're looking at angle 1, and opposite is angle 8. Well, those are both obtuse angles. They are also going to be congruent. We have the alternate exterior angle theorem. If 2 lines are parallel, then the alternate exterior angles are congruent. So far, 3 new angle pairs, and they all have their own theorems that say if the lines are parallel, those angles are going to be congruent. This next one's going to be a little bit different. Here's my river. We're going to look at the same side interior. So we're looking at 4 and 6. But now 4 is obtuse and 6 is acute. So they can't be congruent anymore. They could in only one situation. If my lines were perpendicular, then they would both be 90. But let's see, if they were both 90, then they would have to add to 180. So what happens here is 4 and 6 are going to add to 180, and something that adds to 180, 2 angle pairs, we call those supplementary. So our same side interior angle theorem says if the lines are parallel, then same side interior angles are supplementary. There's no marking for that, so we could just say the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 6 equals 180. So to recap and look at all 4 of those together, if 2 lines are parallel, corresponding angles, the ones in the same spot, are going to be congruent. Alternate interior angles are going to be congruent. Alternate exterior angles are going to be congruent as well, but same side, those are a little bit different. Those are going to be supplementary. How is this helpful? It will help us find other measures. So again, if I have 80, I could work my way through This is 80 because of vertical. This is 100 because of supplementary. I can make the jump down here because 2 and 6 are corresponding. Or I could do 2 and 7, which are alternate exterior, which is 80. And then we have supplementary to fill in the 100. So just by knowing the one angle measure, I can figure out all the rest of the 7. Let's look here. We have the measure of angle 5 is 120. 120, and we want to know angle 1. Well, identify what angles they are. We do have parallel lines. It looks like 1 and 5 are both in the upper left-hand corner, so those are going to be corresponding. So we can say that they are congruent, so angle 1 will also be 120 degrees. I changed it. Now we're looking at angle 5 being 120, but we want to know what angle 3 is. Well, those are going to be supplementary, so angle 3 is going to be 60 degrees because those are same side interior angles. And now we're going to put a little bit of algebra in there. So we're back to angle 5 being 120. Angle 1 is 12x plus 10. Those are both corresponding, so they're congruent. So this is what I mean by figuring out the relationship. How are these related? Well, the vocab word is corresponding. Their relationship is congruent. So I can say that 120 must equal 12x plus 10. I'm going to subtract that 10 over, divide by 12. So 12 is whatever 110 divided by, x is 110 divided by 12. To recap, we have intersecting lines, parallel lines, you have to have that mark, and then perpendicular lines, you have to have the right angle box. Corresponding angles are congruent only if the lines are parallel. That has to happen first. If the lines aren't parallel, they're still called corresponding, they're just not congruent. So corresponding angles are congruent. Alternate interior angles are congruent, 3 and 6. Alternate exterior angles, 2 and 7 are congruent. And then 4 and 6 are same side interior, they would be supplementary, as well as 3 and 5 would be supplementary. Nice job.